Mike Lowe. It's not the cake pop.
Not the cake pop.
Yes, our political reporter, Mike Lowe. Thank you very much for coming on Real Milwaukee.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
We had the governor on Wake Up this morning, and we just kind of wanted to talk to you to get your thoughts about that interview. What was it, a 6-minute interview?
It was much longer than that. Yeah. It was scheduled to be a 6-minute interview, but I think we actually went close to 13 minutes. So he's very gracious with his time, and he's a guy who will answer any question you have if you get him and you have an opportunity to ask him. So.
I was out on the weather deck waiting. It was at least 13 minutes.
He was waiting.
It's cold out there.
The producers talked to us in our earpiece, and we got the wrap-up signal about halfway through that, and I think we went another 6 minutes after that. So.
You know what? And that's fine, because it's the governor, and there are a lot of questions that people have for him, and the fact that you guys had the chance to sit down and talk to him about that. Right. We have a clip earlier of something where he was talking about collective bargaining, because I think the big complaint has been that no one knew he was going to do this. That was the big thing. And so let's take a listen to that first.
I explicitly said I was going to balance the budget. I said I would do it without raising taxes, and I said I would do it without cutting Medicaid, which I actually added $1 billion to for needy families, children, and seniors. And I said I was going to do it in a way that put more of an emphasis on putting money into the classroom. You can't do all those things unless you do the reforms we did.
So basically saying that he did say it, right?
Well, you know, that's certainly debatable. You know, I covered a lot of that campaign, and he didn't ever explicitly say that on the campaign trail. The argument that he makes is that he says all options were on the table. And I think his critics would say that's one of those statements that politicians make all the time, whether it's Tom Barrett in a snowstorm saying, well, we're going to have all options on the table, or if it's the president talking about a nuclear crisis, all options on the table. So you don't really know what it means. It's a statement that's so vague that nobody's thinking specifically that it's going to be collective bargaining and all the other things that happened afterwards. So I think the critics have a point when they say that. Now, what he's saying is also that unions that were against him during the campaign had stated that he was ready to go after in a flyer. And so that's not quite the same thing as him actually saying it and making it a central tenet of his campaign platform.
But he wasn't, I mean, to be fair, though, he wasn't secretive about it. I don't think it took a major leap to figure out that there were going to be some significant cuts were he successful in his campaign for governor.
Exactly right. I mean, his record as the Milwaukee County executive indicated that he would make these kinds of moves. But the question is, for the rest of the state, did they actually know the extent to which he might be willing to go, especially going after public workers in the unions? And I think that was a little muddled. Of course, we know it here in Milwaukee County because we saw it for 8 years when he was the county executive. But so I think that is going to be the central issue of this campaign, whether or not he was upfront about it, because frankly, if he had said it and been clear about it, I think we probably wouldn't be having the recall right now.
When he talked about the recall this morning, I thought it was interesting how he said, because we've all, you know, all these recall and the sites are out in the campaign, the ads. He said how a site was launched, recall Scott Walker, the day he was elected.
Oh, there's no question about it. There were people who were wanting him out of office from the moment he was elected. Before he got in, before he had a chance to do anything. So that was a very hotly contested campaign. If you remember back in 2010, there was just all kinds of political emotion, and of course the wave of red swept the Republicans to power, and from the moment that happened, the Democrats have been wanting to reverse course.
But to use his own logic, he shouldn't have been surprised about that either, because the president 2 years prior was barely in office before numerous websites went up trying to recall him based on phony birth certificates and all this junk. So if he's saying that we should have made the leap on his policies, then I don't think he should be too surprised that
I don't think he was surprised about the fact, but he is pointing out that this isn't a recent turn of events as far as the recall message.
And you know, he's one of the people who takes the stance that recalls philosophically are bad, because voters make a choice during an election, and then they should have to see the consequences of the choices they make. So the analogy he used off camera afterwards, I was talking to him just a little bit in the newsroom, he talked about Ted Thompson and the situation with Aaron Rodgers. He said in the immediate aftermath, when he got rid of Brett Favre, a lot of Packers fans would have recalled Ted Thompson if you were only allowed to get that first season with Aaron Rodgers. If you were going to then allow the whole thing to play out, nobody would question what Ted Thompson has done. So he's saying, you know, we're essentially in the first quarter here, the first year of his term. Let me play the whole game.
And he'd love to be compared to Ted Thompson.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
It's a good, but you get it. Wisconsin talk, you know?
You know, when you're talking about basically saying that he was kind of going after the unions and after the people, he said something today that I have to agree with, and the fact that he's giving people actually more rights to choose whether they want to be in a union or not. And previously, I mean, the unions, if you took that job, you had to become a union member. And I kind of understand where he's coming from on this.
You know, that point is accurate, that union members now are no longer required to give the money, but I think by and large union members believe that their unions have been weakened because now the dues are not automatically taken out.
Right,
which
and
is
because people have a choice. They might not think they don't like the union.
So some people don't, but I think a lot of members of the union cherish that union because it's essentially the way that the little guy gets power against the big guy. They all come together and they can bargain as one unit as the hundreds of thousands of workers.
It's a larger voice versus the little guy, you know, screaming his pleas.
But what about the people that say, hey, because I'm not having to be grouped with this group of people now, I can be rewarded for doing outstanding work?
Yeah. I still agree that for the people who do not feel that they have a voice of their own, or who I think the unions were a good thing, and the grouping and the power that happens with a collective voice is good. I don't know that it has. You have a job, you would do outstanding work. Are we all identified for the work that we do? Not really. I mean, that's the world that I live in anyway.
During his appearance on Wake Up, the governor made reference to the outside money. The unions on a national level are going to make Wisconsin the battleground here. If they can get rid of Scott Walker, that's a huge victory for them. So you're going to see a recall election if it does in fact happen. That hinges on whether or not enough signatures are going to. Many people, both Republicans and Democrats, agree probably will happen. So when this election happens, you make this kind of Custer's last stand, and Walker, that'll be the call of these fights that we're seeing. And to the point on campaign money, we also asked the governor, he has 60 days or longer from the moment the recall petitions were filed until the time the election is actually authorized. He can raise unlimited amounts of money. That gives him a tremendous advantage over the Democrats. And today on Wake Up, he made news when he told us that he didn't start collecting that unlimited campaign cash until the actual Democratic recall effort was launched. If you remember, a couple of weeks before, there was kind of this rogue recall effort, and the Democrats had accused the Republicans of saying, well, this is just a way for Scott Walker to get more money, to start taking the money
to get
sooner.
a head start, because it was actually a former Walker supporter or a current Walker supporter that filed that initial recall petition, correct?
That's correct.
So it would have given him a head start. But I think that's a classy move on his part to wait until the real thing was filed. So.
He still has a tremendous advantage. The law is designed to protect incumbents.
Right. And to be fair, though, I mean, all that money that he's raising, we're talking about outside money, I mean, there's no restriction on him taking what could be termed as out-of-state funds, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the last few weeks, he's been going around the country to places like Kansas and Florida and other places where people have a kind of a dog in this fight, where these collective bargaining rights or collective bargaining debates are happening. And he's been going and speaking before groups and taking donations. He said not specifically the unlimited kind, but he certainly is using those.
Quickly give us an update, because it's something we brought up yesterday. The video of the girl who it was posted online, the smokes thing. Tell us the
right,
update
the SIGs for SIGs.
Yeah, we had the video.
We had the video yesterday, and there was a conservative group called Media Trackers that had gotten some video of that showing. You can see right there a person taking a cigarette and then another one signing. They look very young. In the report Media Trackers put out there, they hinted that maybe these people aren't 18 years old, which would be illegal. You can't sign the petition unless you're 18 years old.
Or smoke.
And well, smoking is bad for your health.
Oh yeah, you don't do that.
But you can't bribe somebody in order to do that.
Right, you have to say, we will give you this in order to get your
Right.
signature.
What the Democrats did is they investigated this themselves, and they went out because they had the woman's name and address.
Yes.
She signed the petition. They went out and found her, and they showed her ID. We have pictures of that, which we agreed not to show because the woman doesn't want her identity out there. She's actually 22 years old, so everything everything was above board. We don't know the situation about the cigarette. I think you guys were talking about it yesterday. You don't really know what happened
you don't
there.
hear on the audio
You
them
didn't hear.
saying.
The person could have said, "Do you have a cigarette?"
But it's indicative of the kind of tit for tat that we're going to see throughout this campaign.
yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Oh, you don't think it's over?
It may never be over.
This is a perpetual cycle, I think.
Yeah.
The
Mike, thanks
political
a lot.
lowdown will go on and on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good to have you here, though. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for
You'll
having
come
us.
back too. All right.